So, what was going on in your life when you first came across Jolie's work and entered into the year of opening?
I was floundering. I had been in a triad at the time, and we had tried a couple of different resources, including group therapy. Um, that kind of devolved into a blame Bobby kind of session, which wasn't very helpful. And I knew that we weren't, there was a lot we didn't know, but we needed some kind of guidance. We had tried to look up resources on the internet, but again, we just weren't all on the same page. The triad fell apart. My husband at the time ended his relationship with my girlfriend and his partner at the time, and our marriage was on the rocks. And I wanted to find some resources to help us to just have a better relationship with each other. I feel like something had gone awry, and there was a day long. I found it on Instagram, a day long session, and I'm drawing a blank on the name of the influencer who is also poly. But they had a day long session, and Julie's session was one of these.
It was Elizabeth Cunningham.
That was the name. Yes,
Yes.
Elizabeth Cunningham. And in that day long session, I was taking so much notes. Like I write in my iPad, and it was an excellent session. And after that, I followed up with Jolie because her work on like the stuff you were talking about with jealousy, like that was one of the things that really um was striking for me. And I kept thinking, yeah, I know jealousy is mine to deal with. I just don't think it's only mine to deal with. Like I think there were some parts that were the responsibility of my partners, but I couldn't, like, I knew I needed to name something, but I couldn't name it. And then listening to your session, Jolie, I was like, I think I can find some help there. And that's how I reached out and got in touch with you.
Mm. I really appreciated, I remember those early days. I really appreciated you being so vulnerable and real about how much pain was present for you. It was not, I remember thinking, this is a person who knows that something's wrong, wants to put in the effort, wants to do the work, but maybe doesn't even know where to begin because so much had gone off the rails. It's a,
Yes.
it's a hard spot to lean into, and I'm moved that you were willing to show up for yourself that way.
I feel
And
like everything had just gone so wrong, it couldn't get a whole lot worse. I might as well get into it and do the hard stuff and hope for better.
Yeah, yeah. So if you were to be specific, I think you started to touch on it. What were you hoping to learn or change? Like what were you seeking?
I was looking for mostly ways to deal with what was going on inside of me. I was feeling a lot of jealousy, seeing my girlfriend get things from my husband that I had wanted in my own relationship but thought I could never have. And so I kind of just accepted that. And I was also in individual therapy at the time. And one of the things I was working on was actually voicing my needs. And so it's like the intersection of me stating what I needed, but also understanding the dynamics of being in a triad. Um, it was I wanted to find a way to make it all work. I felt like I was juggling and the balls were in the air, but they weren't all equally weighted, and so it's just like I didn't know how much effort to put into whichever parts. And like I wanted help figuring out, okay, this ball is a little heavier. You want to put a little bit more effort here, and just to understand how to move things in a more balanced way because it wasn't whatever we were doing wasn't working.
Yeah. I'm curious, Bobby, what when you were in that stage where you were doing your individual work and I feel like you're naming that you were in the midst of a lot of justice jealousy, feeling and actually seeing. You had lots of evidence that your partner could do, was able to do the things that you'd been asking for, but they weren't willing or able to do them for you. How did it shift for you to start having a place to at least name that? Did that help change it, or was it actually frustrating? I really don't know how it felt for you to come to the awareness, to have, we put a name on it, but now you have to look right at it. How did it feel to look right at that justice jealousy?
So by the time I had gotten to the point where I could identify that what I was feeling was justice jealousy, the triad had dismantled. My husband and I were already in the separation phase of divorcing. But I remember a part before that, before we got to the divorce stage, where I was like, okay, all right, he just doesn't have it in him for me. That's okay. It's okay. Like I just wanted to hear some kind of confirmation that, it just wasn't there. That I felt like I needed to hear the confirmation that it wasn't there so that I would know that it's okay to seek it elsewhere. Um, but we were in such a dynamic where I couldn't get that confirmation. And even when I got to the point where I asked for what I needed, I was like, okay, I see that you don't have this for me. Um, while I was going to be in your program, I actually was not going to be dated. That was one of the things that I stated going into the program. I was just like, I wouldn't be dating. My focus would be on our relationship, you and me, husband. And I wanted to put the focus there. But when I identified that, okay, you didn't have this care and nurturing and romantic way of giving in you for me anymore, I wanted to be able to seek it elsewhere. But it's not like I needed permission. I wanted some kind of acknowledgement that he saw within himself that he didn't have that for me, and that it was okay for me to go find it elsewhere, because I shouldn't have to give up my desire to have those needs met because he isn't capable of doing it for me. And so it was just like that's what I wanted from there.
Yeah. I heard you. I heard you then, and I hear you now. I hear you now with all the wisdom of now many, many months of having worked actively on this. The wisdom of seeking, wanting validation, just of what you were like. I feel this. I see this. This looks true. Can you, my partner, just validate that this is true? You don't need to fix it. Can you validate that this is true so that we can make a new normal together? We can negotiate some new path together? And I want to acknowledge that it didn't go the way you wanted. And not all relationships continue when
Mm-hmm.
faced with a true reckoning. And I give you a lot of credit for sticking with the work of learning relationships in the face of not getting that validation, not getting to hear, hey, no, I'm not available to provide you with a romantic connection. I'm not available to provide you emotional validation. I saw you choose yourself.
I did.
I can't imagine a stronger choice to make in the face of all that pain, when it might have been tempting to people please, to fawn, to lean in and just sacrifice or martyr yourself to the relationship, not even to your partner, but to the cause of the relationship, was really courageous to watch.
It was. You put that energy into yourself, and what was it like for you to do that in the context of a group? To share all of that and to bring it to a group. A lot of personal stuff in there.
I think the existence of the group actually made it possible for me to do the work. What was happening before I found the year of opening was that I would be processing on my own, and when I would have those moments of panic, like when I recognized within myself that I had some codependent tendencies, like that hit me so hard. And we were still in the triad at the time, and I didn't have like the support that was there wasn't the support that I needed to help me deal with the fact that I just identified that in myself. Like, I pride myself on being this independent woman. I don't need nobody. And then to realize just like how codependent my relationship with my husband was, like that hit me really, really hard. And I think that being in the group, being able to share in this, it felt like such a safe and welcoming space in which to share what was going on with me. Not only could I get validation that my experiences, even though they were my experiences, they were legit. They were, very valid. And that kind of helped me to go deeper within myself, to explore what was going on under the surface, under the layers, to just keep peeling back the layers. I think the container of the group really helped me to do that, because when I would get together on a Wednesday night, I knew that I was going to be sitting in there and I was going to be doing some work. And yes, I would pick up the work again at some point during the week, but I feel like there was just this window of time where I could be vulnerable, and then I would close the window and I would get back to life. Um, and I didn't have to be carrying it around with me. Like, if I compare how I was processing when I was in group versus when I was reading the codependency book and doing the workbook, and how heavy that felt doing it alone, just it's night and day for me. And so it's like the safety of the group. Like, it really was that. It was the safety of the group, that I wasn't going to spiral into I wasn't going to go down that rabbit hole of just like, this is so hard, this is so hard, this is so hard, this is so hard, and not see any kind of light. I think having it containerized in the group really helped me to be willing to do the work.
That makes total sense to me. It's reminding me too of you were one of the first people in that particular cohort to just decide to what I witnessed was you stepped in with both feet, and your partner had joined with you originally and did not step in with both feet, did not want to show up for the unpacking of the all the stuff. We have to unpack our stuff in order to move forward. And I watched you as that partner decided not to step in and then decided to leave the group, let alone your relationship, but just leave the group situation. I watched you do the thing it's the thing. I can create a space for it to happen, but people have to then do the hard thing of, I'm going to tell you all how this is hurting. I'm going to tell you how this is hurting, and trust that you will see me, a person who has, made mistakes. And I wish I'd done things differently sometimes, but hold me, see me, just see me. You don't need to tell me whether I'm good or bad. Just see me. And I saw you like create some of that group energy by showing up that way. You created what became a really fantastically intimate cohort from my perspective.
Yeah. I felt like that was the approach I went into therapy with as well. I felt like, if I don't bring up the thing that I need to unpack in this safe space, I'm never going to unpack it. And so it's just like, if I'm going to show up, then I'm going to show up. And I felt like there was so much going on inside of me. I needed to show up because it was eating me up inside. And I needed to work through it, and I needed support to help me work through it.
Yeah. I'd like to ask a hard question, and you might want to answer it, you might not. It's totally okay. But
let me grab some tea.
Yeah, exactly. It is not uncommon for me to have someone be interested in year of opening as a way to save a marriage. Sometimes because they've already opened, sometimes because they're trying to open as a way to deal with other issues. And you showed up and you were very clear that things were already on the rocks. It was really difficult in your world. And you've already been clear here. That relationship did not continue. And I'm curious how you would, how would you conceptualize that now? Was that good, bad? Would you count that a success for you? There's no words. I could put it in my own words, like what I think happened, but how do you conceive of this experience?
I think that, like, I look at where I am today and how I am in relationship today, and I would say that the work I did within myself was successful, that my time in the program was successful. I feel like I'm in an intentional relationship, and that's what I wanted. I wanted to be in relationships where my partner was choosing to be in relationship with me, where I was choosing to be in relationship with my partner, not that we were bound together by kids or a house or a mortgage or a legal structure. Like, we were actively choosing to be with each other. And my partner right now, like, also has done his own work and continues to do his own work, and I feel the consciousness of that choice, and the emotional safety that it brings. And I feel like that's something that I hadn't realized was as important to me as it actually is. And it was through doing that work that I was able to really recognize, where my values lay in terms of being in relationship with someone. And there was significant misalignment between me and my ex-husband. Um, and I feel like if he had stuck with it, we would have been able to unpack together, because we did have a strong foundation. We were married for 15 years, and it was 15 good years, mostly. Um, but I feel like if we had done the work together, the outcome could have been different. I'm satisfied with the outcome that I got from doing the work.
Yeah. I am incredibly proud of the work you did. Not because you did it with me, but because I watched you choose to. You could have just like pulled the covers over your head and said, this is too hard. I need to deal with a divorce. I need to deal with healing from that. And I watched you just like stick with, I want my relationships, all of them, to be better, and therefore I want to know how I'm showing up. You did the self-awareness piece full throated. Like, you were so in it. And I still see, like, every time we connect, I'm so impressed with how you are continuing to speak truth. You're continuing to speak it to yourself and to hold the parts of you that are in opposition, that aren't on board with the way things are going. And that's hard, but I see you doing it, and I'm just so excited for what that means for the world. Like, you as a person being in the world at like just a skilled human at relating. I'm way to go. Way to go.
Yeah, thank you. I'm looking forward to being in more relationships so that I can just, I basically got my master's in relationships now, so we should totally date. And
That's it.
that's basically my swagger on apps now. It's just like, I've done the relationship work. It'll be good to date me.
There should be a badge. There should be a little you badge that we should just
Yep.
make a badge. Like, you've been verified. Good
Gotta make it a
job.
thing.
Love
Yeah.
that. Yeah. The Bobby gets my stamp of approval.
Yeah, there you go.
So I have one last question for you, and you can get as specific as you want around this, or not. You might be more, you might take a more high level look, but I'd love to hear about something that you learned or something that we practiced that made an impact on your relationships. Maybe one of the tools that we learned that particularly landed for you, or one of the methods that you started employing, or a way that you look at the world differently.
So two things immediately come to mind for me. The first of them is looking at the purpose of a relationship. And when I start dating someone, my time is limited. I am essentially a single mom. I have my kids half the time, and I volunteer a lot because that's like part of my self-care. And so I look at the relationships that I'm exploring and what the relationships are bringing for me. What purpose are they fulfilling for me? And am I also able to fulfill a purpose that is relevant to the person I'm dating? And that has led me to de-escalate a couple of relationships. But that's one of the things where I don't want to ever get into a relationship again where it's routine, where we're just in it because we're in it. Like, it has to have a purpose. So that was one thing that came up for me. Another thing that came up for me was, the inner counsel. Like, the inner counsel work just really, like, that landed so well for me because it helped me to it helped me to really have conversations with parts of me that weren't getting a voice. I wasn't processing, thinking of things from that perspective. And I have some inner council members that are more vocal than others. But like that work, it that I think is the thing that I still use the most right now. That and the NSI drills too, actually. Just like I had a recent conversation with my ex-husband, and I was amazingly impressed how, just how well my nervous system just remained regulated during the whole thing. Whereas before, the Bobby of before would not have been able to get her words out because her emotions would have just been so much, they would have choked the words. And so, yeah, technically 3 things then.
Yeah, I love it. Bobby, they're right there. They're right at the top. You're using them. And that's the thing. We talk about this at the beginning of Year of Opening. We talk about how, so we want this to be practical. You need to go use everything that's relevant for you. Go use it. And there's a lot of stuff we present, but each of you has to decide, okay, what's landing for me? And what am I then going to actually use? What are the tools that matter for me? Who needs NSI tools, the neurosomatic intelligence tools, more than somebody dealing with someone we were in relationship with that we are no longer in relationship with? If we were in conflict before, we're going to be in conflict after. And when we have kids with them, we got to do it. Like I use NSI for my ex relationships all the time. I'm so glad you're finding it a source of resilience, because it's not about doing it perfect, but a source of resilience, because you don't deserve to suffer while you're having those conversations.
Yep. I agree.
The way you did inner counsel was so, I still like in our group chat, our group chats keep going. And I love hearing you name those inner council members who are like, oh, we got stuff to say. We have stuff to say. We need to be heard. And that's one of the ways that the community too can, when you're those parts of you, those voices, those pieces that weren't able to be heard even by you, it's great to hear them yourself. It's another thing altogether to have them feel witnessed by others.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's amazing. So I love that. And I love that you've been so willing to call it out and say, here they are. They got voices.
I love that the group in the chat, like they have gotten to know my inner council members as well. And so it's just like when I'm sharing from the perspective of this council member, it's like they get where I'm coming from. And that is it's not magic necessarily, but it's pretty doggone close.
Yeah. It's definitely the magic of community and intimacy on the level of like the friendship intimacy that's built. And like seeking community outside of your dating pool. Good job.
Oh yes.
Good job.